Welcome to the third tutorial of our Spring AI Agentic Workflow series, wherein earlier we covered the Spring AI chain workflow. Then we discussed about the parallel workflow. Today in this video, we are going to discuss about the routing workflow. So let's understand what exactly the routing workflow is. When it comes to routing workflow, we have two main components. First one is the router. Then we have the set of specialized handlers. So each handler is responsible for performing a certain kind of task. Now, when user submits the query goes to the router, which is nothing but we will make one LLM call here. Then router will go through the set of specialized handlers that we have and decide which handler can fulfill our request. So here in this case, you will see the router is routing the request to the specialized handler one, which is nothing but the next LLM call that we are making. Now this handler will fulfill the query that the user has submitted and finally submit back the response to the user. So this is how the routing workflow pattern works. When it comes to our implementation part, we will discuss one real life scenario wherein we are trying to build the e-commerce customer support system wherein the user can have queries related to their orders, products, billings, and so on. So based on that, we have created one Spring Boot AI application wherein you will see we have the controller class which will accept the input request from the user. Controller class will forward the request to the service class and service class will ultimately send the request to our workflow, which is nothing but the routing workflow class. So this is where the exact logic will be executed, the one that we discussed in the diagram. And then we have the set of DTOs that will be used across our application. Then we have the main class. Then we have application YML and pom.xml wherein the configuration related to our project is defined. Now coming to the IntelliJ, here first we will cover the pom.xml. Over there you will see we are making use of Spring AI version 1.0.0, which is the stable version available. Then we have added two dependencies. First one is related to Spring Boot Starter Web, which is useful for developing the REST APIs. Then we have added the Spring AI Starter Model OpenAI dependency. So this will be useful for interacting with the LLM. In our case, we will be interacting with Google Gemini APIs. We will go through the configuration and then we have added the Spring AI bomb dependency, which is useful for managing the Spring AI related dependencies in our project. Now coming to the application YML, the configuration that we have added is related to the AI with which we will be interacting, in our case Google Gemini API. So first we have passed the API key. So the API key will be passed through the environment variables. Then we have the base URL. Since we will be interacting with Google Gemini APIs, we have configured it accordingly. Then we have configured the completion path. Then we have specified the model. In our case, we will be making use of Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental. So this was the application YML. Now, if you see the project structure, we have controller, we have service class, we have workflow, and then we have set of DTOs. As I mentioned earlier, via controller, we will receive the request, which will be forwarded to service class. Service class will forward it to workflow class. And during this flow, we will require set of DTOs that are mentioned here. So let's start with the main class. In main class, nothing special is configured. We are just specified that our main class as a which will act as a starting point of our application. Then we have the controller class. When it comes to controller, we have created one post endpoint. So here you will see we have configured the base path for our controller, which will be API support. Then we have created one endpoint, which will be starting with inquiry. And when it comes to the this endpoint, we are accepting the request from user. So the request will be mapped to the inquiry request DTO that we have created. This is nothing but a simple Java record wherein the query submitted by user will be mapped here. Coming back to the controller, here you will see our controller is sending the request to the support service. So with the help of Spring Boot constructor injection, we have configured it here and our controller will forward the request to the service class along with the query that we have received from the user. So once the response is available, it will be routed back to the user. So for response class, we have created one DTO support response. Over there, you will see we are just sending back the response to the user in the form of string. Now coming to the service class, here you will see we have created one method which is called from the controller with the name of the method is handle customer inquiry. The inquiry or query that we receive from the user will be mapped here, and we are just forwarding the query to the uh, routing workflow class that we have injected with the help of constructor injection. Now coming to the support routing workflow class, we will cover what we have inside this class. First, you will see we have the chat client inside this. So chat client is nothing but with the help of chat client, we can interact with our LLM. So first we are initializing the chat client within the constructor, for which we are making use of the chat client builder, which is provided by Spring. All we are doing is with the help of builder, we are initializing our chat client. Next, we have the get support routes. So the application that we are trying to build, we have the four different kind of support, or we can say specialized handlers that we have that will fulfill the requests related to the queries that user has submitted, that and it can belongs to the order support, wherein user wants to know more about the products that they have ordered, like when it will be shipped and so on. Then we have the product support. Let's say user has certain queries related to the product that they have purchased or that they are trying to purchase. This is where the product support comes into the picture. Then we have the technical support. If user is facing certain issues related to the products that they have purchased, then this is where technical support will be useful. Then we have the billing support, wherein if user has any queries related to billing or refunds, this is where it will be useful. So we have just created map of string comma string, where the keys are nothing but the specialized handlers that we have in our case for our application, and the value is nothing but the prompt that we will send it to the LLM, based on which the LLM will try to solve the problem based on the query that the user has submitted. For example, in case of order support, the prompt you will see is we are asking the LLM to act as the order support specialist, wherein the area of specialization are related to if there are any queries related to order tracking, then this order support will be responsible to solve that. And we are asking it how you can identify or how you can generate the response based on it. So coming back to the support routes, we have initialized support route as well, which is nothing but we have created map of different kinds of handler that we have case of our application. Now coming to the method, which is route customer inquiry, which was called by our application. Here you will see we are receiving the query that user has submitted. So once we are inside this method, we will break down our whole problem into three steps. First, we will determine the route that we have to take. This is nothing but the router which will take the decision which specialized handler I need to call. So step one will be determining the appropriate handler. Then we need to get the prompt for the same. Let's say the first LLM call identified that I need to call the technical support. For that, we need to create a prompt that we can send it to LLM. This is where the step 2 comes into the picture. Then step 3 is the final step, wherein we are calling a particular LLM to fulfill our request or to fulfill the query that the user has submitted. So this is how the entire problem is broken down into three steps. Now coming to the step 1, wherein we are classifying which support handler will be responsible to solve the user queries. So as an input, you will see we are passing the user query, and then we are passing the specialized handlers that we have. In our case, we have four specialized handler that we seen inside the map that we discussed. So coming to the classify inquiry method, so first you will see we are first constructing the prompt that we need to send it to the LLM to identify which specialized handler can fulfill this request. So here in case of a diagram, you will see first call is the LLM router call, wherein we need to send certain prompt. So construct prompt which here will be useful. So when it comes to the construct prompt method, Here you will see we are asking the LLM that you are a customer support system, analyze the customer query that the user has submitted, and based on it, give us the response in this format, which is nothing but the reasoning and selected route. So we want to understand why the particular route was selected by LLM and which route was selected. So this is how the LLM should respond with the two fields in JSON format, reasoning and selected route. Now, when we go back to our this method, we have created the prompt. Now we need to call the LLM that will identify which route which specialized handler will fulfill the query that the user has submitted. So here you will see we are making use of chat client to send the request to LLM, wherein as an prompt that we need to send is nothing but the prompt that we have created. We will call the LLM, and then we are requesting the response in this format, which is the DTO, route classification DTO, that we have created. So when we go to route classification Java record, here you will see it will it will state the reason why the particular route was selected and which route was selected. So this is how the response is getting mapped to the DTO, and then we have just printed why the particular route was selected and which route was selected. So here you will see classify inquiry method will, which is nothing but the now the router has identified which specialized handler I need to call, and we are returning it as the response back to the our route customer inquiry method. So now the route has been identified. Next is get the specialized prompt for the selected route. Now earlier we had created the map wherein the key as well as the required prompt was mapped inside that. So this is where the step 2 will be helpful, wherein based on selected route, it will identify which prompt I need to send it to the LLM. So when it comes to support route.get, we will pass the route that was selected by LLM, and we will accordingly get the prompt that we have to send it to the LLM. So this prompt is nothing but the prompt that is required by the particular LLM call. So next is all we now we have identified which specialized agent we need to call, what input we need to send. So this is where we will send our final request to the LLM with the help of chat client, wherein we will pass the specialized prompt that we have created along with the query that the user has submitted. Then we are calling the LLM, and the response that we are getting from the LLM it will be returned back to the service class, and service class will return it back to the controller, and ultimately we will send back the final response back to the user. So let's see this in action. Let's start our application. So now our application is started. We will jump to the Postman, wherein you will see we are sending the post request to the endpoint that we have created, which is API support inquiry. Now, first, in case of first example, what we are trying to do is we will try to know more about our product, when the particular product will be shipped. So user has ordered a laptop 3 days ago, but haven't received any tracking information, and user is providing the order number. Now, when we will submit this query, behind the scenes, the request will go to router. It will identify the agent who will fulfill the request, and accordingly we will get some response. So here you will see, since the query was related to the order, the product that the user has ordered and it has not been shipped, so the query, the specialized handler has identified, it will be fulfilled by the order support, and reason why he has selected the particular specialized handler is mentioned here. Once the request goes to the order support handler, we will get some response. So here you will see at the start of it, at the start of response, here we are specifying which support system or which specialized handler has fulfilled or tried to resolve the query that the user has submitted. Now consider one more example, wherein the inquiry is related to the product that the user is trying to look for. For example, user wants to purchase a gaming laptop with at least 32 GB of RAM and the RTX graphic card, and the budget that the user has mentioned is under $1,500. Now when we will submit this request, the request should go to the product support, the product specialized agent that we have. So if we check the logs, so here you will see the router has selected the product support specialized agent that will fulfill our request, and the reason is also mentioned here. And when we will receive the response, here you will see the response was generated by the product support team. Now coming to the final example, wherein there is some technical issue which is user is facing, wherein the user is unable to log into the account even though the password that the user is trying to use is correct. So since it is a technical problem, the request should go to the technical support team. So when we will submit the request and see which route was selected by the router, here you will see the technical support route was selected, and then the technical support team or technical support LLM agent will try to solve the problem, and accordingly we have received a response. So this is how the routing workflow pattern works in real life. Now in our case, we had created the 4 routes. In complex real world scenarios, there can be many more routes. We can also create one fallback route if LLM is unable to identify something or unable to identify the route which will fulfill our request. We can also create one specialized route wherein the input from the human is needed to solve a particular query. So based on the use case that we are trying to solve, there can be fallback scenarios or default scenarios for which you can create the specialized route. So this was all regarding the routing workflow pattern. And if you are interested in the blog version of the same, we have created the detailed blog wherein the example that we discuss are also mentioned, and also the source code of the example that we discuss is uploaded on GitHub, so you can check out if you are interested. Yeah, so that's all from my end. Thank you.